operate the various tools that you have, then you need to make them aware of what is it that you use content-wise. So all these data marks represent certain content. You have to explain what that means. You have to explain security provisioning that you have applied. You have to explain for various positions in the company what data marks they have to use in the first place. So that's just, if you think about it, it's pretty basic, but it did not exist in this company.
Yeah.
And again, we're almost a $2 billion company now. We have about 300 end users. I had to build it up from the ground, and I didn't have any time to do. And it didn't have any time to do it. That's the problem.
Oh, okay.
When I joined, I had to go 300 miles an hour. I had to hire people that did not exist. I had to deal with all kinds of recruiters. And the problem is, I should have been going at that point. I should have been productive, but I had no idea because I was presented with all kinds of things that I didn't know when I joined.
Okay. And so, before rolling out this BI training, so, you must have assessed the situation, that what was the company environment all about, and, that different challenges they had in terms of business intelligence. And then you rolled out this training. So if we get to see this before and after picture, so what sort of benefits did you notice as a result of having this BI training in place?
Less tickets, less incidents, more, more empowered users, more intelligence derived from our data.
Okay, that's great. And you also mentioned that you delivered a basic data quality system, gathering statistics of source data. So what was this data quality system all about?
Like I said, if you don't take care of data, and you provide very interesting and insightful BI analysis, then it's no good. It's not going to be adopted. So you have to go back and you have to say, how can I make sure within certain boundaries that I can guarantee that the data that I get from my source systems meet certain standards? Good examples are duplicate products, duplicate customers, incomplete orders. And so how do I make sure that even if I cannot control these source systems, I can flag the fact that things are not good. I can make sure that bad data does not go in, and I can find problem owners in these source systems, and I can set up a certain process where I can say, here are the statistics that I gathered on your source data. And I'm a statistics guy. I kind of like to do that. And based on this, I can say, okay, can you please, improve this? Can you fix this? And I can show him, after you fix this, the defect rate went down by 50%, 70%, something like that.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, and so another thing you did was setting up weekly cadence of BI project meetings. So, you mentioned that there were not specific meetings for BI. So what sort of improvements did you notice by setting up these weekly meetings?
More control, really. Less major incidents. The number of times you had to come into the COO's office went down, just because you were able to set expectations, you were able to manage expectations, and more importantly, you were able to tell users that if they're looking at a material transaction that was bad, and that's in a BI tool, there's nothing the BI tool can do. This is data that it gathered from source systems, and so you have to make people aware where basically data, is created and how it's transformed into a data mark. So you have to make sure
Yeah.
people find the way to the right data owner. You have to make sure people understand that the users, and at the end of the day, own their own data. IT is only
Mm-hmm.
delegated to manage it for them. So this is really about setting up proper understanding of, the difference between an end user, a developer, and an administrator. It's administrative organization, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of these things
Okay.
did not exist when I joined.
Okay. Great. And so another thing is that you were involved in recruitment as well. So were you responsible for hiring only your team members that you have mentioned there were four, or you did you hire for other positions as well?
No, I only hired for my own team.
Okay. And so who are these four, what positions are your team members at?
These people are data analysts, data engineers. Um,
Uh-huh.
these people are data warehouse specialists.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, perfect. And so this is interesting that, if when I asked about the quantifying the improvement, so you mentioned reduction of 35% incident service tickets. So was this a result of having that BI training in place?
The result is that you get less tickets. The result is that you have more time to do what you have to do in the first place, instead of just
Mm-hmm.
following up on all kinds of questions that could be answers if people were more empowered, if they know how to do things, if they would find the way to specific documents that were made available.
Yeah,
So you improve your productivity when you do that.
yeah, okay. And reduction of average report delivery by 30% again. So this was again a result of um, having everyone trained.
Not just that,
Uh-huh.
that's the result of an IT process, just the regular SDLC. But you
Mm-hmm.
have to follow a certain process. Now, that's very difficult when you do an acquisition. I can tell you, if you do any integration, there's not a lot of process going on. People are just running 300 miles an hour. But in order
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that you understand the prerequisites, the dependencies with other teams, you have to abide by certain rules. When you do that, uh, you're not just waiting for weeks until your coworker is finally done with X if you need X as part of your deliverable.
Mm-hmm.
And so by
Mm-hmm.
just being smart and try to understand what these people are working on, you can actually say, I'm going to orchestrate the following project that it's going to be this and this and this and that. It's not going to be this because that is not going to be available until 3 months from now. So in
Mm-hmm.
order to get a win, you have to say sometimes specific functionality is just not available. We'll do a second version or a third version, but at least we can go live.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Uh-huh.
users were used to not get any information on these projects. If they
Uh-huh.
would get something, it would be because the developer finally had the time to do something. So their expectations were not managed, which is making users very suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very low rate of confidence in your team's abilities, and that's an uphill
Uh-huh.
battle. So when you start, that's your starting position. That people have not a lot of confidence in BI in general. They have not a lot of confidence in your team, even though your team hasn't. You still have to hire a team, right? You haven't even started.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay, okay, great. Okay, and so this reduction of generating monthly FP&A reports by 50%. So FP&A project is something we discussed. So how did you help with reducing the report time by 50%?
Before this data mart was available, this was done manually, and so they just gather all the financial transactions from ERP systems, dump it into Excel spreadsheets, create their own pivot tables, and then when they were finally done discovering and fixing all the discrepancies, They would say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is the monthly end report. This is the data set we can use to do our monthly analysis. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
your data mart is able to automate all of that, it's not very difficult to get a 50% improvement.
Okay. Okay, great. And so one project that you mentioned actually while we were discussing all of the projects was the migration from on-premise to cloud analytics. So this
Yep.
was one of the initiatives. So can you tell me a bit more about it? Like what was the situation and why was it necessary to move from on-premise to cloud?
It's a very contemporary project. Lots of companies are
Uh-huh.
doing it as we speak. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they are moving their on-premise infrastructure for business intelligence, for analytics in general. They move it to a cloud
Mm-hmm.
environment. That
Yeah.
means you have to move your data as well to the cloud. And when you do
Yeah.
that, you have to revise your data architecture. You have to say, let me take a step back. This is an opportunity to get rid of X, Y, and Z. And I always wanted to do A, B, and C as well. In addition,
Mm-hmm.
you get new audiences. And these new audiences were really underserved in the past. These people are just
Mm-hmm.
looking for data. They don't necessarily are like dashboard users, but they're looking for data. In other companies,
Mm-hmm.
they would be called data scientists, but in my company, it's just analysts. And so you have
Mm-hmm.
to make sure they have a quick way of getting their data. And so
Uh-huh.
when companies are going to the cloud, they usually take advantage of that project
Yeah.
and provide
Mm-hmm.
new data pipelines, self-service pipelines, so that the data scientist or the analyst can get quick access to data they never had before. And
Yeah.
there's lots of research materials saying or suggesting that these new types of users are spending 70% of their time getting access to data or to wrangle data or to massage data.
Uh-huh.
That's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of waste time. That's a lot of wasted time.
Yeah.
So cloud migration projects are perfect to address that issue.
Great. Okay. And you have also mentioned on your resume that you defined and implemented enterprise data quality standards. So, like, there were no data quality standards in place earlier.
None.
Okay. And so, once you implemented them, then, like, how was the situation better?
Well, at least you get some insights. Let me give you an example. If somebody puts in an order, right, and
Mhm.
they use let's say they order something that does not have what people call a unit of measure. Let's say they order in
Yeah.
cases, but they want to understand if I order one case, I get 10 eaches, 10 units. Well, if you don't have that conversion set up for that case, the order gets stuck
Mhm.
and it's not processed. So at least by having scripts feeding statistics and dashboards, you get insight into how often does that really happen? Or how
Mhm.
often do I find a duplicate customer name? Because all of these
Uh-huh.
issues impede the insight that you get from these data marks.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Those are just simple standards, nothing fancy.
Mhm.
This company did not invest in data governance in a special position, did not invest in data architecture as a special position, did not invest in data curation software. Everything had to be built up from the ground, so it had to be very practical and very simple.